Good morning everybody and welcome back to the build series. This is week 6, I believe. I did just take about a week and a half, just about 2 week actually, hiatus. I originally was not planning on having this time. My original goal and what was going to happen was that I finished before I went to Colorado. I had a graduation out there that I was attending, and then I was also going to be hosting a trip this weekend, I guess, or next weekend it would have been, in Boulder, Colorado. Now that did get rescheduled to the end of summer, which I'm bummed about for some reasons, but also really grateful for because it has granted me an extra 2 weeks or so on the build to pull things together, as opposed to having to work on the rest of things on the road. With this said, I need to be extremely strategic about how I use the next 2 weeks because the new goal is to finish everything. And there's always little bits and pieces that you want to change or do later on, but this is going to be the remainder of the work that I do probably until winter. The only thing that I would see happening between now and then is if I don't get my diesel heater installed. I won't need that this summer. I was down in 20 degrees in Flagstaff and was completely fine actually without even window covers, so I'm not too stressed about getting that in, but I will want that before winter comes around. So that's the one project I'm okay putting on the back burner. Everything else I'm trying to get done. I am really excited to get started, to get back on this build. I'm super stoked to take you guys all with me this week, and I can't wait to see what this looks like in about 5 days time. To start actually making progress this week, I unfortunately had to undo some of the stuff that I had just finished doing in the weeks prior, and the first of that was to undo my entire countertop. I did not think that I was going to be able to get this backsplash that I ended up finding in the return pile at Lowe's, and so I'd already installed my countertop thinking I would have to come up with a backsplash idea later on. Thankfully, I was able to find one, I was able to install it, and start working on my plumbing. Now, I didn't get the rest of my plumbing finished today or this day, but I was able to set my sink as well as my components, which I'm obsessed with and so excited to use. I have a massive sink and the same faucet and soap dispenser from my last build. Alright you guys, I just finished installing the backsplash, and as you can see, I have my sink, my faucet in. Obviously it's not completely done. I need to hook up my plumbing, which is what I was going to spend the rest of the day on. But seeing as it's already pretty late in the afternoon, I'm trying to balance the things that I have to do and be efficient with my time. The plumbing starts off in the garage, and I also need to work on my electrical this weekend. So my thought is tonight or this afternoon until probably 7-8 o'clock, I think what I'm going to do is work on all of my cabinet and door faces, so that way I can get those and the latches to keep them closed installed, make sure everything fits properly and that the gaps are all even, so that way when I go to hook up my plumbing, my kitchen's basically done. Later tonight I have a video to edit because it is Saturday, so tomorrow a video is going to be going up that I need to finish up, and then tomorrow morning I will hit the ground running with my electrical and my plumbing. Good morning everyone. It is Sunday, which means today is crunch time. This morning I am working on my power system, and then I'm hopping over to my plumbing, which I cannot wait to have. Having running water really makes it feel more like a home, and it's also just kind of one less stress because once my two biggest systems, my power and my plumbing, are in, the rest is really just some woodwork and figuring out the space, which is kind of the fun part, in addition to hooking up loads, obviously. So I'm going to jump into my power because all I have to do is hook up a ground. Yes, it has taken me like 2.5 weeks to do my ground wire because when I first tried to set it up, I was super sick and I was just in my garage, miserable, sweating, getting frustrated over something that was so stupidly simple. So I'm really excited to get that hooked up because it's literally one cable and then I am done. Let's get into today.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our faces.
Okay. Pray for my power system.
hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life.
It works. Alright, you guys, that is a sign of victory. So as you can see in the corner here, there's a little sun, which means it's charging my solar, charging my batteries, and then it would be going to the load, but I don't have anything attached to my 12-volt system yet. Alright, so now I'm gonna go ahead and switch on my inverter, turn that on. That works. And then let's see. And my fridge works. Oh, I'm so excited.
Even in the hard times, you and I can weather any storm.
So one of the biggest questions that I had to answer was how I wanted my water fill to be mounted. A lot of people put them on the outside, which is great for many reasons, but I decided that I wanted mine internal for just a few personal reasons, in addition to not wanting to cut into the outside of the bus. And so I made up a mount and started attaching the threads, so that way I could eventually, not today, hook up my plumbing system.
Call us crazy, but things are finally right.
Alright, you guys, so I'm outside the bus right now because I'm about to drill a hole in the top of my water tank. Sounds counterintuitive, but I'm going to be installing a float sensor, which will connect up into the galley into the kitchen area, so that way I'm able to see how much water I have left without having to like go to the back, unlock the back door, etc. It'll make it super easy to track. I had it in the van and I really loved it. I bought the same exact components, just a bit of a deeper float, because this tank is 18 inches tall. Now, one thing I am doing a little bit differently, in the van, I purchased a, not pre-made kit, but the van tank, it was 4 vans. This is just a standard RV tank. It's square, it's not an over-the-wheel well, anything fancy like that, which means it also does not come with a specific float sensor area. There is a small puck right here, but it looks like it was epoxied back on, and if I were to cut this whole thing out, it's going to be too large for the float sensor that I purchased. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna see. I'm not gonna commit to what I'm doing, but I'm drilling a hole in the top so that way I can have a float sensor. Apart from the obvious drilling of a hole into a water tank, installing a water gauge or a level sensor, a float sensor, was super intimidating to me in my last build because of all of the wiring. Now, gratefully, I did get the same exact setup in terms of the sensor and the float, just a longer one, like I said, and so I know how to do it now, but if this is something that you are concerned about, I would highly recommend just powering through. You can totally do it, and it is so worth it to just know at a quick glance how much water you have. It is now Tuesday. I was not able to work on the bus yesterday because I ended up giving my 2 weeks notice at my job, but with putting in my 2 weeks yesterday, that means that I have a little bit more work to do for my 9 to 5. Even though I am still part-time, there are just things that have to happen before I officially leave. So yesterday was just a work day on my computer, and today I am back in the bus. It is sweltering hot outside, but I'm ready to tackle a big project. So as you can see behind me, I have, at least part of it, you can see that I have taped out my design. Essentially, this is going to be an L-shaped couch. I wanted to meet in the middle of function and form. Also, comfort is really important to me. I want a comfortable place to work and eat, and I wanted a large enough desk area where I could spread out. So the goal today is to get this couch in, and also hopefully to get my shower walls back in. I just want them in here so that way I can visualize the space a little bit better and get on to some finished work before hooking up the rest of my electrical and my plumbing. If I've learned anything during this build so far, it is how much I love this Craig jig. In my last build, I dadoed everything using a router, which took so much longer and was so much more difficult to get square. This Craig jig makes everything go so much faster. So learn how to use it and you'll love yourself for it. Good afternoon, guys. It is Thursday. I think it's Thursday. It's been disorienting. I have been working a lot more in my 9 to 5 this week, which means the bus has slowed, not come to a halt, but definitely slowed down as I wrap up work stuff, continue to recover from being sick. I wake up every morning feeling like I got hit by a truck. So just trying to balance my health and work and responsibilities with obviously finishing this bus. Now it is Thursday. It's been 2 days maybe since I've recorded, and in that time all I've really gotten done, not even gotten done, but worked on, is this bench. So as you can see, it's coming along. I just finished sealing it, which was why I thought it would be a good time to sit down with you guys. Oh geez, this camera. And just chat about my plans for the weekend and my new timeline. As I mentioned earlier this week, I believe, I do have an extended timeline now, as some of my events got pushed back until later in the summer, which is really nice because it's allowed me to take care of some work stuff, take a couple of days off of the build, and just recover a little bit more, which is super important for my long-term health and just how the bus turns out. With that being said though, this weekend I am back on the grind, trying to get as much done as I possibly can, because after next week, which like I said, I'm working until next Friday is my last day. Until then, I'm not going to have a ton of time during the week, likely, to work on the bus. So I have this weekend, next weekend, and then roughly 8 days until the bus needs to be ready to go on the road. I'm really hoping that that means done. That is the goal, since I've had an extra 2.5 weeks or so than I originally planned, is to finish up as much as humanly possible, so that way when I get on the road, I'm done. Obviously, you're never done. There will be things that I'm going to want to change, update, or upgrade, I'm sure, but done for the sake of like this summer, this season, hopefully this year. So the goal today is to finish this bench. I just went to Home Depot this morning, which is why I got a late start, to grab some hinges so that way I can install the tops that are going to hinge up so I can use this as storage. And then after that, I think I'm probably going to go onto ceiling trim. My ceiling is in, but there are small little gaps where the plywood meets, screws, etc., that I would like to cover up, and that trim has to go in and the ceiling must be sealed before I can install my lights on the side. And then after that, it's really a lot of more of the finishing touches. There are some projects like the shower, but things that aren't vital to have done. So I'm excited to get to the fun stuff, to make it look all pretty, and then to move in the next couple of weeks.
I would be up waiting for you if you had to leave.
At first I was super overwhelmed about making this bench, but it turned out to be a lot more simple than I'd anticipated. I used 3-inch quarter ply for the entire build, so it's not stick built, but rather sheet plywood built. Some simple hinges, a little bit of wood glue, and some nails, and I think I could have a dance party on this thing. It came out really well, and I'm so excited to put the storage to good use. So minus the top trim piece, which as you can see is still not on there because I'm going to match it to something that I'm doing on my Skylight so it ties it together, the bench is done. I am in love with how this turned out. I think the heights worked out really well for me. It's just below my shoulder blade, so I'm not hitting on it when I have cushions here. Obviously, I'll be more like this, but the angle in the back is incredible. The depth of the bench itself is really nice. My feet hit the ground. I love how it hinges up. I'm gonna see, can you guys see this? It hinges up and it stays, which is great. And then let's see if it does it. Okay, that was a little bit loud, but I have felt down, which is preventing nearly all of the sound except for when I just slammed it, and I think it hit the middle piece. It doesn't have felt on it yet. So I think this came out great. I don't know why. Obviously, I've done a decent amount in the bus so far, but this project, getting this bench done, feels like the first build maybe that I've done. I know I built a bed frame and a cabinet and put some walls in, whatever, but I guess because I didn't build my cabinets myself like I did in my last van, this is the first piece of furniture that really feels like it's all mine. And dare I say, I will get them eventually, but this is so comfortable that at this point I'm not even that concerned about getting cushions for it. Obviously that's a goal for the future, but I don't think that I need to rush it as much as I originally had thought that I would. The other addition that I'm going to be making to this bench, you might be wondering where I'm going to work. In my last build, I used the Lagoon swivel table mount, and I told myself it was overpriced and I wasn't going to do it this time. But with the space and the convenience and honestly the quality, I did really love the high quality of the Lagoon table. I think I will be doing it again. It's going to allow for the table to be completely out of the way during the day as opposed to having something fixed to the ground that's like out in the living space. It will be completely removable, so if I wanted to lounge here during the day, take a nap when Tara wants to be up here, which I'm sure she's going to, it will allow for all of those things to happen without having a big massive table in the way or taking up living space. It is pricey. I think it was $199, $200, which is a lot of money, especially when you compare it to a DIY version. I know a lot of people have done the DIY Lagoon table, and I did consider doing that, but with the time that I have left and my inexperience building a swivel adjustable height mounted table like I want, I figured that I would probably end up having to replace that, or worst case, if I weren't able to build it sturdy enough, it might break, it might fall in Tara when I'm driving, it might come off, and those things all just really make me a little bit nervous, especially having her in the bus with me. It is getting late in the day, it's about 6:30, so I'm probably going to spend tonight just experimenting with some ceiling trim. I have a thought of how I want to do it, but I want to test a couple of options out first just to see what looks best. My original idea was to put pine up, but I think it might be a little bit too marbly in comparison. But it might look cool. It might tie in well with my skylight since that is what I'm doing there. So again, I'm going to test some stuff out and probably wait to install it until tomorrow, just that way I have good daylight. And then once the ceiling trim is in, I can install my lights so that way I can work in here later into the day. All right, so I just got the two side pieces, which uninteresting, they're just square pieces up on my skylight, or the beginning of what's going to be my skylight trim, and now I have to deal with the curve of the bus. Now it's not that extreme, so I'm hoping that the scribe will go fairly quickly, but what I'm going to do is just take this piece of cardboard and I'm going to start by just kind of guessing the curve, if you will, and the reason that I'm doing that is because it will make it a lot easier to follow the curve with the thing that I'm scribing with than if I just started with something that was square. So I'm going to show you how I do this. It's not an expert secret, anything like that. It's just the way that I found that works using basically no tools. I'm using a roll of tape, as you'll see, that typically does pretty well. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Is so much closer than what I just started with. So I'm gonna go ahead now and transfer this to a piece of wood that matches these two guys that I already put up. And then we are probably gonna have to adjust that one as well, but at least we have a good place to start from. So this piece is looking like a pretty good fit, and originally my thought was maybe, because I've had such good luck with it so far in the build, I could just use liquid nail to hold these up since they are, with some pressure, going to be holding each other up. But I have had liquid nail on the two side pieces for probably a half hour now, and I'm just really not loving how unstable they still feel. So I am going to use some self-tapping screws, the wood to metal kind that I use for a lot of the bus, just to secure them in 2 points, and then I'll also repeat that process with these pieces. But I wanted to screw those two side pieces in first, just so I can get their exact placement and make sure that these two front and back, like end cap pieces that are curved, fit as well as possible. I have an idea. I need to go fix this though. That worked a lot better. So what I did basically is just notched out this side, which allowed me to push this up a bit and allowed that screw to sit a little bit higher. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna repeat the process on the other side before doing the edges. All right, so I just finished putting up the 4 pieces that go around the edge, but I'm gonna be honest, it's looking a little janky. The ceiling came out as straight as it possibly could, but because it is curved, there's obviously going to be some areas that are off because I used a square piece of plywood on a curve. So what I'm going to do to fix that is match the rest of the ceiling, or what will be on the rest of the ceiling for trim, and that is just by using some 1/4 inch maple around the edges. As you can see, I did 45 this first piece, and I'm going to do my best to match them up in the corners, and then this will essentially just sit on top of these 4 pieces up there. I think that it's going to come out looking pretty good. I'm probably going to need to caulk some of the areas and just make sure, you know, all the gaps look like they're filled. But I think overall, for how out of square this could have come out, it did turn out pretty well. So I think this will work out. I'm going to cut these pieces, install them, and then probably wrap up for the day. All right, so that skylight took forever. I think it literally took maybe 4 hours to like start to finish, cut the pieces, scribe the pieces, figure out how I was gonna do the trim, seal everything. That was a hefty project. I'd been procrastinating it for a long time because I had a sense that it might be, but did not think it was going to take quite that long. And honestly, it's still not even done yet. Although all of the pieces are up there, there are still gaps. It's not perfect and it won't be perfect, but I do think that I can continue to clean it up a little bit more with some wood fillers, some caulking, and just make it look a little bit nicer and a little bit more even. But for my first skylight, I'm pretty stoked with how it came out, and I think if I did it again in the future, I would do the same method, just with a little bit more practice. So hopefully it would go faster and come out a little bit cleaner. I have a few other pre-cut pieces of trim that I am likely going to install tonight just because I have the nail gun out and I have them cut already, but otherwise I think I'm going to call it a night and pick up the ceiling trim again tomorrow morning because tonight I get to edit this video. So I will see you all next week. Thank you so much for your patience. I know that there was about 2 weeks where it was Q&A and a bit of a break when I was sick and out of town, so thank you for bearing with me and for sticking through. So happy to be back here with you all, and can't wait to see you next week for week 7 of the bus build, which is the second to last week. So I will still be posting afterwards, but I'm hoping for the build series to be over during week 8. Thank you again for being here. I will see you guys next Sunday.